Welcome to another edition of Capital Preview brought to you by MediaCom. I'm Bill Peard, and I'll be your host as we discuss important issues with our state representatives. Our guest today is Representative John Forbes from Urbandale. John, thanks for joining us here on Capital Preview.
Thanks for having me in again today.
And how are things going up at the Hill?
Well, I just left
week?
from there, and it's very busy. We've
Yeah.
got a lot of groups in this week lobbying us on bills that need to be pushed out of committee by the end of this week. And so meeting with a lot of people and getting their opinions, and hopefully we can get a lot of those bills pushed out before our deadline at the end of this week.
Very good. John, I know that medical privatization is an important issue for you, and so if you want to share a little bit with our guests today.
Well, as you know, last year about this time the governor came out with his plan to move our Medicaid managed population into more of a managed care system. So we've been working over the past few months trying to make sure that when this program does go live, that it's going to work for all Iowans who are on the Medicaid system here in the state.
Okay, very good. Another one that is issue that you're working on up at the Hill, which is very interesting to me and I think all of Iowa, is the medical cannabis bill. So you might want to explain what happened last year and what they're trying to accomplish this year.
Well, 2 years ago, we actually passed a bill that would allow for the use of medical cannabis, the cannabis oil, in individuals with what's called intractable epilepsy. And that's been a problem because the issue with that was it was such a limited use, but people that had this medical condition had no access to the medication because of state rules and regulations. And so this year, a bill has been introduced into the House. It's House Study Bill 607 that would allow for the manufacture, production, and distribution of medical cannabis in the oil form only to Iowans who have an assortment of different medical conditions.
Okay. So how do you think that's going to work? I mean, are you going to get it through, do you think, this week, or?
Well, I serve on the subcommittee. In fact, we're going
Right.
to have a meeting tomorrow at noon to discuss this, and there'll be people coming in from both sides of the issue to discuss it, to try to give us their point of views. But I'm hopeful that we can pass this bill out of our subcommittee tomorrow, and then that makes it eligible for the full committee, which will probably look at it on Thursday, which is the last day, the deadline to get bills out of there. So if that does happen and it passes the full committee, which is going through the Commerce Committee, then it'd be eligible for debate on the House floor at some point in the future.
Okay. Do you see a big groundswell of people that are supporting to be able to manufacture the cannabis oil, right? Is that what Iowa would have to do?
Yeah, we'd have to actually grow the marijuana plant
Okay.
here in the state of Iowa, and right now 23 states have passed laws, including the District of Columbia, have passed different types of laws to allow for the growing and the possession and the dispensing of this medication. So about half the states in our nation now have passed some type of law that would allow this.
Are you hopeful that it will
I'm very hopeful.
assigned to a Senate file or a House file?
It's a House file.
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. You know, there's literally hundreds, if not thousands, of Iowans that could benefit from using this medication. It's not first-line therapy. You know, I'm a pharmacist. I understand the background behind dispensing, behind drug therapy, and issues that drug therapies can cause. So if a patient has say, epilepsy, they wouldn't go into their physician and get this medication as first-line therapy. They'd go through the normal algorithms of dispensing certain medications to treat seizures. And if all those fail, this would be one more medication that the doctor would be able to recommend to his patient to use to treat this very debilitating disease.
So you're going through all the regimen first, or the
Correct.
or the protocol, I guess. I don't know.
Protocols.
Yeah,
and that's what we try to tell people. This is not first-line therapy. You have to go through all these regimens before they would probably use medical cannabis.
And you said you're seeing and encouraging that it is working in a lot of cases.
Oh yeah, we've seen literally dozens of people come to us and say that they've had access to the medication, say through another state. Most of them are getting through when they go to Colorado. They can get the product there, and they've seen a tremendous reduction, say, in people with seizures. I had one lady tell me that her daughter was experiencing 100 seizures per week.
Yeah.
Now it's cut down to maybe less than a dozen per week. So it does work, but it's a process we have to go through, and we have to work also with the federal government to reschedule this medication. Right now, in the eyes of the federal government, this is considered an illegal substance. It's a Schedule I narcotic. Yeah. And we're trying to work with the federal government to, at some point in time, to reschedule it to a Schedule II, which would then make it available to be bought and sold in retail pharmacies here in Iowa and around the country.
That's very interesting, and I think so. It's open to the public, right? The subcommittee.
Yep. It's a public hearing,
Yep.
and it'll be, like I say, Wednesday at noon at the Capitol.
At the Capitol. Mm-hmm. So if people are interested, that might be something that
they could come in and voice their opinion. I know there's going to be a fairly large group there,
Yeah.
so it might be difficult maybe to be able to speak at that meeting, but we always take written comment from people. So if they want to send written comments to the Capitol, we'd be more than happy to review those too.
It's very interesting. John, the next thing I wanted to talk to you about a little bit is education. I know that you're
yes, education.
big into the education part of
the
legislature.
We, as you know, the House passed a bill that would allow for 2% growth in school aid, and the Senate passed 4%. The governor's at 2.45%. So we're kind of between 2 and 4, and the governor's at 2.5, basically. So we're in the process right now of trying to determine that number. It's in a conference committee, which is comprised of 5 members of the House and 5 members of the Senate. And they're right now in negotiations trying to determine what that number will be. And it's taking some time. We're talking millions of dollars here.
Absolutely.
For every 1% of growth in school aid, it's about $40 million. So we're about roughly $80 to $85 million apart if you look at the 2% in the House and the 4% in the Senate. So it's gonna be a while. I've always said that the pathway for us to get out of the Capitol on time, which I believe is the 19th of April, is to get the school aid formula figured out earlier than later.
Yeah, right.
If we wait till the end, it's gonna bog everything else down. So I'm hoping that we can get this figure out and get it voted in both chambers and sent on to the governor.
Yeah. What are some of the other things, John, that are interesting, or maybe kind of peek behind the veil a little bit?
Well,
what's happening up at the House or up at the State House?
We've one of the things that's kind of come again this year is fireworks. We had a bill last year that went through the House, went back to the Senate, ran into some issues, and so fireworks is going to probably be back at some point in time. We're going to be discussing that bill. I'm not in favor of the bill. I think it's fireworks have their place. I mean, most communities in the state of Iowa, a lot, have a great fireworks display where people can go and see them on the 4th of July. The other side is kids tend to not do smart things when they get fireworks in their hands. Mm-hmm. They tend to shoot bottle rockets at people, or firecrackers blow up in their fingers. And so talking to medical health professionals, I think it's probably best just to keep our laws the way they are right now.
So where is that in legislative wise in the?
Well, I think that it's over in the Senate right now, I believe.
Okay.
And we haven't seen any bills come over from the Senate yet. So we'll probably see something, I would say, sometime in the next probably 2 to 4 weeks.
So do you think you said April 19th is kind of the date, the 100, is it a 100-day
That's the 100 days.
session?
Yep, that's our 100th day.
And so do you think that's going to happen based on what you see right now? We're approaching the funnel, which is the first big cutoff of the legislature, right? I mean,
yeah.
Whether bills go on.
Well, I think my feeling is that I think education funding is going to probably go a little bit longer than people want because of we're not sure with the budgeting and with we have the tax coupling bill that's still out there, and that has a big impact on our budget, about $90 to $100 million. And so I think until those things sometimes get figured out, then we sort of start looking at the budget for education, which really is not the way we should do it at the Capitol, because school districts need to certify their budgets by the 15th of April. And I don't know if we may not get that bill out by then because of all these other things that we have to look at. So I'm hopeful, but my optimism keeps shrinking every day.
That is tough. So you'd almost want to change. Well, there's certifications, and so you'd almost have to make another deadline earlier, right? In March.
Yeah.
In order for them to know what they're going to get.
Well, and technically, we were supposed to have set the school aid formula for the next fiscal year, which would start in July of 2017.
Yeah.
That was supposed to have been done last week.
Yeah.
And we still haven't gotten this one done yet. So we're way behind, and it's state law. We should have had that done last week, and we again violated state law.
That's gonna continue to be an issue, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
Until you get that fixed. Well, that kind of our time's kind of up for this episode of
Okay.
Capital Preview. So I appreciate your time. Very interesting things going on up the hill. Appreciate your hard work. So join us next time for another episode of Capital Preview. Our guest today has been Representative John Forbes.